Good afternoon, everybody. My name is AJ Kuftik, and I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I see there's still some people filtering in. Um, I'm really excited for today's demo. We have a really great we have a really great platform to talk about, and I know this is a very hot topic, so let's get started. First, I want to talk about housekeeping, just real quick. If you have questions, please enter them into the Q&A panel inside of Zoom. It helps us keep track of the questions. We have a couple people who are going to be answering questions during the demo. So just keep that going. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you didn't get your question answered live, we'll be answering them at the end. Ask a question, you're entered to win a prize. We'll announce the winner to that as part of the Q&A session. And this is being recorded. So if you have to step away or you missed something or somebody else wanted to see this presentation, wasn't able to make it, you'll get a link. It'll be on our website. It'll be on our YouTube site. So you'll be able to see those number of different avenues there. So for those of you who are new to Expedient, we were founded in 2001. We started as a co-location company and we branched into managed services and cloud. We have our cloud locations in US East, Central, and West. So our West region just opened up at the end of 2019 in Phoenix. We have international cloud deployments in Australia, Germany, and Canada. So those are on customer sites. So if our cloud locations don't work, we can help bring that cloud to you. We've also been a VMware cloud provider since 2007. We have almost 40,000 virtual machines running on our platform. So we've been running VMware at scale for over a decade now. We're also a Rancher Platinum partner. Before we dive into cloud native applications in the demo, I want to talk about some personas. And when we think about this, this is kind of how the business itself sets up when we start talking about modernizing our applications. From an infrastructure standpoint, I'm going to start with them because that's my background. Our infrastructure people are very much interested in security and control, right? They want to understand, how do we make sure that people are authenticated correctly, that we don't have bad actors? How do we audit? How do we make sure that all the logging is there? How do we monitor this platform? How do we support it? How do we upgrade it? They're very much focused on the platform. They don't really care about what happens above it. They just care about the base platform. And they know VMs, but they're not entirely sure about cloud yet, right? Some people have moved into hyperscale cloud, others haven't. But really most infrastructure people, especially on-premises infrastructure people, know VMs. They're not entirely sure how this cloud native stuff really works. On the other side, we have developers. And developers want to modernize with freedom, right? They want to be able to say, I'm taking my application, I'm going to go put it somewhere, I'll swipe a credit card and deploy my stuff. I don't want to talk to infrastructure because when I talk to infrastructure, they're going to tell me no, or we have to figure out how to do all this stuff and it's going to take too long and I don't want to wait for them. That's the reason why they drive towards hyperscale, right? They can just go and swipe the credit card and start deploying, but they don't think about all of the other pieces that go into that and then have to back in all of the additional monitoring, audit, logging, and all that sort of stuff that infrastructure is trying to set up in the first place. And at the top, we have our business, right? And our business is looking for agility and speed to market. They don't really care how that happens. They don't care if it's containers or VMs or platforms as a service or software as a service. They don't really care. They just want to be able to get the business outcome that they're looking for without having to completely shut down everything that they're doing. And they keep hearing about this cloud thing, but they're not entirely sure what cloud is, right? They just hear cloud and they say cloud's the way to make this work. So go make it work, everyone. And that leads to this really gray fragmented bit in the middle, right? The business hears cloud, developer wants hyperscale cloud, infrastructure is not entirely sure about cloud. And so we end up with the current state of cloud native. Local developer has their own sort of build on their local machine, and maybe infrastructure is built an on-premises platform, or maybe they've branched out into an enterprise cloud like Expedient or hyperscale cloud like AWS to try and build this container platform, but they have different user accounts, they have different APIs, they're not in alignment. It's very fragmented and broken. And so what we've done as Expedient is we've built one platform that can manage those local platforms. They can manage hyperscale platforms, and they can manage enterprise cloud platforms. And so we can take and have one IAM platform, one API, and drive all of that through one management plane to get your applications to where they need to be and start to break that fragmentation and bring everything together, right? We want to make it easier for our customers to go deploy cloud native applications and not have to build out all that infrastructure. And so that's what we've built. And from a fragmentation standpoint, On the far left there, we have our dark blue lines for containers. Only 17% of respondents to this 451 research survey say that they have full adoption of containers across 100% of the IT organization, and 13% on Kubernetes. So it's this very small amount. And I think the more telling numbers are the ones right next to it, the 32% at team level and 23% at team level for containers and Kubernetes respectively, right? This is where the fragmentation really lives. And then you have proof of concepts for other teams who are trying to figure that out, right? So there's a huge turning point right now to sit down and say, let's bring this all together. Let's put this all together and make it a cohesive platform instead of a bunch of silos trying to build their own environments. So let's dive into this demo. For our infrastructure people, we're going to look at our cluster deployments. We're going to look at our security and controls. And from our application side, we're going to deploy an application, we're going to scale it, we're going to shrink it. And from a developer interface standpoint, we're going to look at how we can automate and interact with that via other methods. So let's jump into our demo here. So what we have is we have our main cluster interface. So if I go up to add cluster, we're going to deploy a brand new cluster today. And from inside of here, we have a number of different options. We have the ability to take on and import an existing cluster. So if you have an on-prem environment, you can manage that with this Rancher platform. You can also deploy to a hyperscale cloud into a compute instance where maybe you control a little bit more of the platform, or you can just manage the individual clouds hosted platforms like Amazon EKS or Google GKE. But for this, we're going to pick the big fancy Expedient button, because that's our enterprise cloud. So we're going to give this cluster a name. And we're going to give it a node prefix. So as we deploy more nodes, it'll just count and just make it node 1, node 2, node 3. Speaking of 3, we're going to create 3 nodes out of the box. So I have high availability and I can take nodes down or scale at need. This template here, this is how we connect to EEC and how big the nodes need to be. And we're going to set up etcd, control plane, and worker. So we have all of the functions that a Kubernetes platform needs to have to actually run. And one of the things that I really like about Rancher is the fact that I can grant role access. So in this instance, I'm going to pick one of our product managers. His name is Justin. And Justin is going to have member rights. So he's going to work with me on a future project here on this. So I'm going to make sure that he has member rights, and we'll go ahead and we'll create this cluster. What's happening on the back end, if we go look at our Expedient Enterprise Cloud, we're deploying VMs. So Rancher's going in, deploying these VMs into our platform. But if you look here, you can see demo DC 1 and 2, those are domain controllers. This is my application server. These VMs and containers live right next to each other. And so now our cluster is fully deployed. But we can make sure that as we start to scale these containers out and I start to bring my cloud native applications in, my legacy and my current applications aren't left behind. They're running on the same platform, same networks, same everything. So if we go into our cluster, we can see that we have a number of Grafana dashboards available, and we have all of our big charts around CPU memory and number of pods. Right now, we'll save the Grafana dashboards for a bit. We got to wait for some data to get into there. If we go up and we open our members, I can add another member, and I can grant them things like maybe more granular nodes. Maybe I need, or more granular rights. I read the word nodes, sorry about that. But if we look at this, maybe I want to give just read-only access to my operations team or my monitoring team. They don't need to actually change anything. I just want to give them read-only access. And I can create custom roles for each of those individual users. This can also integrate and will integrate through to your Active Directory. So if you're using your Active Directory accounts with Expedient Enterprise Cloud, that same user account can be used inside of Rancher for us to deliver that full authentication. So you maintain the application, lifecycle of the accounts, and so you don't have to worry about local accounts being left behind because someone left the company or changed roles. So I'm going to give Mike Garuccio, he's our subject matter expert for Rancher. I'm going to give him member rights, same as I gave Justin, so that he can help me out when I invariably goof something up here. So we go back into our clusters, and I'm going to go create a project. And a project is a logical construct, a logical grouping of namespaces. So if you're familiar with Kubernetes, pods are the actual workload at the bottom. Those are grouped into a namespace, which is kind of like an application. And then we can group those namespaces together in a project inside of Rancher. So you can have a dev project, a test project, and a prod project. So let's give this a name. We'll call it demo project. I can grant rights into the individual projects themselves. So I don't necessarily need to give everyone rights to all of my projects. I can grant that granularly as well. And I can also set quotas. So let's say this is a dev cluster. And I want to set, say, a memory limit. I could set this project to only have 4 gigs of RAM available to it, so that my dev project doesn't take over and use all the resources because someone wrote bad code. I can also set that down to the namespace level. So inside of that dev project, this Skunkworks project only gets 2 gigs of memory so that they really don't mess up even our dev environment. So you can get very granular with the amount of resources that you grant to a platform. But since this is my demo, we're going to go ahead and just remove that, and we'll save that. So we have our project now. And if I open up my demo project, I don't have anything in it, right? It's a big empty project. So let's go put a namespace in here. And again, still all in the UI. I can read from a file, and this is the Weaveworks sock shop. So if you've seen this demo before, same code. Pulling down that YAML file, I can import it inside of the UI. I give it a name, and I click import. And what it's going to do is it's going to go out to the image repositories where all of these pods and their configuration is built. It's going to download them, pull them into Rancher, and set them up underneath this namespace, setting up all the port settings, setting up all the networking settings. Additionally, this sets up its own load balancing. So I have a public IP netted to a private IP, and then that private IP is a load balancer IP for all of my front-end pods. So now, if I go to my website, I can see that I have my Weaveworks SOC website. In here, I have this is my advertising service, this is my catalog service, this is my cart service. So all of the individual pieces of this application can be moved around, can be changed. So if I want to add something like international shipping, all I have to do is make that change to the cart service. And I can make that change tonight to the cart service instead of waiting until next Saturday for the big application change and have to make sure that my change gets in along with catalog changes and advertising changes. And so we want to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes. And those smaller changes help provide more agility to the business, which is really what they're looking for. They don't really care what's happening on the back end here. They want to be able to say, hey, we want to turn on international shipping tonight. That's the outcome they're looking for. If I dive into the catalog here, we can open up the catalog. I can open up these colorful socks. I have on polka dot socks. These are striped socks. So this is very relevant to my interest and I could buy them. If I go back to Rancher here, let's say that marketing says, hey, we're going to run a 30% off sale this weekend. We're going to have some more users. We want to make sure that the website's going to be able to support that. Okay. I go over here and I change this from 1 to 3, and now new containers start to deploy. And when they deploy, this is scaling the application out. They're all landing behind my load balancer. And so I'm able to get the additional resources available to the marketing group so that we have a good user experience on Saturday when people are buying socks by the truckload. And if I go back into my website, I can refresh this. Nothing changes because I'm still on my same nodes. And if I dive into the actual front end, I can see that I have my one pod that was created 6 minutes ago, and I have these other 2 that were created a few seconds ago. And my config scale is set to 3, so it's guaranteeing that I have 3 available at any given time. So if I go here and I check these 2 boxes, and I click delete, as the 2 delete, 2 new containers get stood up at the same time, so I can make sure that I don't lose my high availability and that I don't lose my resources so that I can have all of those users hitting it at the same time. This is a really great way to do things like a blue-green deployment where I want to roll version 2 to version 3. You can do it that way and do a rolling deployment. Again, nothing changes here. I'm still on the website. It never goes down. And I can see that my new containers are up and running and the old ones remove. So I can scale this application and move it all around and not really affect any end users. But they're not actually running that sale. So I'm going to drop this back to 1. Those containers will start to remove. And as they remove, it'll go back down to the main one and my website remains up. So if we go back to our cluster, we can now see that we have performance data in here. So I can go down and I can look at my, my cluster metrics, and I can see that I have load average. I can see my disk IOs going up. I have additional network packets. And if I go into Grafana itself, I can dive deeper into this environment and see all of my monitoring data. I can see all of my charts at the cluster level, node level, pod level, namespace level, and really dive into my performance to see what's happening when I'm having performance issues with my code. Am I seeing CPU spike? Am I seeing memory spike? What's really happening? And all of that is baked into the platform. You don't have to spin this up. You don't have to build your own elk stack. You don't have to do any of those sorts of things. But for our developer folks, this UI is delightful, but it's not what you want. You're looking for the command line interface. So inside of Rancher, we have kubectl, so you can run those same commands. And this is really great for troubleshooting, but as a developer, this isn't exactly what you're looking for, right? You're looking, this is great, but you can't access it from anywhere else. So what we can do is we can go in and we can, let me get that back up. I accidentally closed the window. So what we can do is we can actually go in and we can download the kube config file, and I can put that on my local machine. And inside of here, I can download that. And inside of here is my actual config file, right? This is connecting to that Rancher demo environment from my local machine on my MacBook. And if we come back here, I can run kubectl get namespaces, and I can pull those exact same namespaces out of my demo environment without any issue. The challenge is that kubectl is a cluster level construct. It's not multiple clusters. And if you get into multiple clusters, dev, test, prod clusters, we're going to want to use something different, and that's the Rancher CLI. So if I run Rancher context switch, I've set this up already, I can see all of my clusters. I can see all of my projects that I've created for this. So if I pick project 5, which is my default for that demo cluster we just created, I can do things like Rancher nodes, and I can pull those nodes that are inside of that cluster so I can see what's making this up. And if I want to, I can do things like Rancher kubectl get namespace and get that same command, but I'm doing it in the context of this. And if I were to do a Rancher context switch and pick 1 and run that same command, I get a different set of services. I get a different set of namespaces. So I'm able to jump back and forth across all of my individual clusters and do that with ease versus having to juggle kube config files. Here's the thing though, Rancher is just one part of our cloud native platform. It's our container platform, it's our Kubernetes platform, and it handles that authentication, it handles the container management and all of that image repository. But there's other pieces to that. As you start to bring in your stateful applications, that's where Portworx comes into play. We get persistent storage, so things like databases. And when you start to put persistent storage together, you need disaster recovery, and that's where Portworx comes to play as well. Our enterprise cloud runs our VMs and our containers together. So we get that same performance, that same network, that same workspace for our platform. So we don't have to juggle different platforms, different providers. It's all together in one cohesive unit. And finally, we have Elasticsearch. So we saw the Grafana dashboards. And maybe we want to do things like application logging and build dashboards off of that. Or I want to get deeper into the performance or connect my application performance to my infrastructure performance. We can do that through Elasticsearch, and that's also a service that we offer. And this is continuing to grow. So as things change in the cloud native world, we're going to be here to help build that forward and help make sure that we build a great infrastructure for our customers so that they can focus on the applications and less on the infrastructure itself. So when we come back to this, right, instead of having a fragmented platform, through our partners with Rancher, Elastic, and Portworx, we can build one cloud native platform on top of the Expedient Enterprise Cloud and do that with our 100% SLA. If it's down, you get a service credit. That's the policy. If we have our same services, we have our same standards, we have the same capabilities. Our operation staff is available to help 24/7. Our delivery staff is available to help us build this all out every day. So the same thing happens, but bringing it forward into a cloud native world. And that's really what this cloud journey is, right? We have our cloud, we have our co-location where we can bring those legacy apps and our physical hardware for mainframe and AIX. We can bring our VMs together with enterprise cloud. And then on top of enterprise cloud, we take the next step in our evolution and yours and bring cloud native to the table. So you can have your legacy apps, your current apps, and your modern apps all together. So please, thank you for joining us. Thanks for bearing with me through the last little bit of that demo. I'm glad that worked out. Please join us next week for our micro segmentation. We're going to talk about how we take these applications and protect them from each other and from you. And we'll be here at the same time, 12:30 p.m. on May 21st. So please join us. Also, if this interests you, please schedule a test drive. Email me, aj.kufdick@expedient.com. We can get set up with a test drive. We've done this for a number of customers. So please reach out to me and let's get started here. And with that, I'm going to open up Q&A to John White, who's our Chief Innovation Officer, and Rob McCafferty, our Director of Solutions Architecture. John, Rob?
Cool. Thanks, AJ. We've been banging away here and answering questions. So thanks for all the questions. They've been awesome. We've been trying to answer as fast as we can. They keep coming in. I'm going to hit on a few of the highlights here. So a few people asked, is Rancher something proprietary to Expedient? So the answer to that is no. Rancher is it's an ISV. So they're an independent software company. So we actually have a partnership with them, and we've been working with them for a while. We actually have customers running on this platform today. And so we've had a deep relationship with Rancher, and we've chosen them for the time being to really just focus in on making Kubernetes management easy, no matter where it lives. Some people mentioned about, is this a competitor to Anthos or Tanzu? The answer is yes. My opinion is that I think there's going to be multiple management consoles out there for Kubernetes in the future. So this is one of many that could be inside of your ecosystem, as your application team and your architecture team is going to probably have a lot of different demands based upon what they're building and how they're building out their cloud native applications. One of the questions we got, is this a managed service or a co-managed service? With all of our managed services, it's something that we offer co-management. So you have keys of the kingdom here to go and build clusters and create automation. There's a full API that you can interact with. So you can have auto scaling of your application, auto scaling of the underlying cluster. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of make this open, or this is open. And so you can really make it yours and put your customization on it. As we know, a lot of application development shops, they all have their own special and unique needs. We want to make sure that we can facilitate a platform that you can then go and customize to your needs.
A couple of general themes. A lot of questions about how to get a hold of the presentation. So it will be posted out on our website here in the next couple of days. A lot of questions about demo environments or test drive environments. I think AJ hit on that. Feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to get those set up.
Yes, so you can give me my email, aj.kufdick@expedient.com. Reach me on Twitter @ajkufdick. Please rack my mentions. So yeah, reach out. We can get you set up with a test drive.
We have a lot of people asking about price and costing. We can definitely share more of that with you on a one-on-one basis. I gave my email out to a few people that were asking. You can send an email to AJ. You can go onto our website, and there's a ways to get in contact with our sales team so we can help you and walk you through that. So happy to do so. There's it's pretty easy, a cost model to it, so we can easily walk you through it. A lot of people are asking about compliancy here, and so yeah, I mean, this is something where we've talked about. Really just the one tool. AJ showed one tool here. This is using a lot of different components. So it's utilizing our enterprise cloud underneath, and people could be interacting with our co-location facilities. And so yes, all of those things fall under the same compliances, the SOC 1, SOC 2, HIPAA, PCI DSS. And so we can talk through each of those again on a one-on-one basis to make sure that we can fit your auditor's needs. Some people asked if they could bring their own hardware. Yes, this manager can actually manage Kubernetes clusters anywhere, and that's some of the vision here. Is that if you're running Kubernetes locally today, or if you're running Kubernetes in a third-party cloud, wherever it might be, you have one console, one security layer, one place for all your team to actually go and do the administration, and you can manage all of those things. So yeah, if you run your own cloud environment internally today, and running Kubernetes, you can use this on top to make management a lot easier for you.
I see one here about do you see this primarily for developers or internal application development? Are there any prepackaged applications taking advantage of cloud native platforms yet? That's largely up to those software manufacturers. I've seen a couple security vendors actually start to containerize their apps because they're looking for that scale out. What was the one? I'm blanking on it now. Fidelis, that was one, where we ran into it being a containerized application when I was at a customer life previously. So it depends on that vendor. If that vendor decides to start to move their things into a container-based platform, yes. But as of right now, yeah, this is very much derived for developers and internal applications. This is also a chance for you to look at those prepackaged pieces of software and determine whether or not they make sense for you and your business, and maybe start to look at doing things in a cloud native manner to try and move forward if your vendors are starting to get stagnant.
And one question I saw was any built-in governance for infrastructure folks? Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that people like most about our platforms is that we kind of bring together the infrastructure teams, the development teams, provide the feature and functionality that they're both looking for, and then wrap that layer of management and security around both your container environment, your VM environment, and your physical environment.
A lot of questions on the training and guidance and the kind of the help of getting to this stage. There's a lot to kind of talk about there. We partnered with Rancher partially because of some of their extensive training that they do. So if you take a look at their website, on their YouTube channel, they do a lot of hands-on training with the product. It is open source, so you can actually go and use it yourself in as a test scenario to get comfortable with it. So that's super easy. And they have a ton of training. We've been working with them and partnering with them on training as well. They do something called a Rancher Rodeo. And so we can make sure that we get those blasted out to the community to make sure that you know when to attend those. But that kind of shows how we're actually it's this presentation that AJ gave you today, but with like a hands-on kind of lab feel to it. So it gives you a good sense of how easy it is to actually go and manage on your own. And we do work with a lot of third-party companies to provide professional services. So if you want deep training for your teams or to understand how this could be impact your organization, we have a ton of great people that we can have you work with that they can help you on refactoring your applications or even this whole cloud native transformation. So a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to approach it. Again, probably the easiest way is to just get a hold of us and we can help guide you on that path. We have a full solution architecture team that can give you some kind of high level guidance and consulting to kind of point you in the right direction, and we'll work with you to kind of build a solution that's tailored to your needs.
I see a whole bunch of questions around monitoring and bringing your own tool set. So the Grafana monitoring and the Elasticsearch, the Grafana is baked into Rancher in terms of amount of storage and metrics. I haven't really dived that deeply on it, to be entirely honest there, but we can definitely look into what that actually can do from a long-term standpoint, 30 days, 60 days, whatever. But Elasticsearch is our larger monitoring package around cloud native. And so when we're looking at things from a monitoring standpoint, we really like Elastic. But if you want to bring your own and you want to run them, that's fine. We don't block you from doing that. We don't say that this is the only thing that you can run. You can absolutely bring your own tool set.
Yeah, our vision for the whole platform is actually just that, is to bring your own tool set to make it work for you. We're going to have some prescribed tools that we think are going to be the best of breed for certain things. You can see obviously Portworx for persistent storage, Elasticsearch for the log centralization. But somebody asked, can they talk to Splunk Cloud? Yeah, you can actually send the logs out to Splunk Cloud, use that, fine. Rancher has Istio built into it from service meshing. You want to use something else, fine. If you wanted to interact with Jenkins today, yeah, you can do that. You can deploy your applications that way. So the value prop for what we're providing here is a group of tools that are open and available for you to use to build the perfect cloud native application to your business, instead of some of the other guys where you're getting a very prescriptive, narrow stack and you're saying, this is what you have to use, this is how you have to deploy your applications. We want to be the other side of that, where it's a lot more open, allowing you the choice to kind of make it work for you, but we can help you along the way with some of the managed services. So Ed has an awesome question. Would I be able to easily deploy Kubernetes clusters without having to manually log into servers and run commands individually? Can this be done via the dashboard? Yeah, that's 100% the point of this product. It is super easy. I think the first time I got this up and running, I had a VM running Rancher up in obviously a few minutes, but I had a Kubernetes cluster running in probably another 20, 30 minutes. And that was a lot of me just, fumbling around, learning, clicking and going. So it's something that you can then auto scale a lot of the layers of Kubernetes through command line or through the GUI. So you can click it and make it just increase it that way. So it's very, very simple for you to, kind of get up to speed here quickly and really provide an impact for your development team or your architecture team.
Yeah, I mean, when I started building out this demo, it was pretty straightforward. I didn't have to click around. I built everything inside of the demo inside of the UI. I didn't do any command line until we started looking at the developer interfaces and how to actually show those. That was it. So everything else was done inside of the UI. I didn't have to run any commands or know anything in particular other than what my password and username was to connect the EEC, which is what you put into EEC to get that running.
So a few people asked that, can Rancher interact with different client directories that are out there? So yeah, the answer is yes. You can easily interact, with SAML and OAuth, I believe, providers. I know like Azure AD, there's a built-in integration for it. So if you're running that, it's literally a click of a button and a passing of a API key, and I think you're up and running there. That's all. Again, the point of it is to make it very modular and open to interact with what tools you're already using or what tools your people might prefer. So on the free trial, you can definitely, reach out to AJ, reach out on our website, and we can get you free trials of this. We can do deeper demos too with the solution architecture team. We are working on the ability to actually get this demo that AJ went through up on our website, so you can kind of click through it and learn it on your own pace. We're probably a few weeks away from that, so stay tuned. We'll make sure we definitely broadcast it out to the community that way, and we can get get this a little bit more hands-on. Like I mentioned, it is open source, so you could download this and run this, in a matter of a few minutes, few hours, working on your own.
Yeah, if you do sign up for one of those demo environments, we can provide you kind of the script that AJ went through to run through the demo, so you can click through it yourself in that demo environment.
A few people asked, about the difference between Kubernetes and containers, and so just want to make sure we get that addressed out there, as there was a few questions. Kubernetes is the management layer to actually run and operate containers. So you could think about it if you have VMware background, vCenter is used to manage the virtual machines. The virtual machines are the underlying tech that actually makes the code go, and then vCenter is what's used to manage that environment. So view it the same way. Kubernetes here, Rancher's here to manage Kubernetes really throughout any platforms to run containers. There's a lot of other features too that AJ didn't have time to get into. They make it super easy to deploy applications. So if you're familiar with like Bitnami, you can actually go and get the Bitnami catalog and go and click a button and roll out WordPress or NoSQL databases, anything you really want from an application repository. And so that can really speed up your deployment of these kind of base level applications, kind of get your dev team going. And then once you kind of find what you think your production environment is, you can easily clone and copy that production environment. So each of your dev team has the ability to then go and utilize what's running in prod, but for their dev environment. And, you know, you can blow it away when it's done. And then again, spawn another one off of the prod environment when you're ready to do some more development work on it.
Hey, real quick, we have a raffle winner. Joseph Ward has won a Bose SoundLink. Karen will be reaching out to Joe. And thanks for joining, and thanks for asking a question, Joe.
Great. All right, Rob, or AJ, any other questions we want to hit on? I think we hit a lot of the themes.
Yeah, I think we've hit most of them in general.
So Joe asked a great question. How much Kubernetes experience does a client need to get started?
I had none.
I didn't really have too much until I get started. So I think you can handle it, Joe. And just you know, if not, feel free to reach out to me or AJ, and we'll help you along.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I started doing this demo, I did not have a ton of experience with Rancher itself, and even Kubernetes, and it made it super simple to drive through it and do that. The Kubernetes Academy from VMware is actually a really great basic training course around Kubernetes and what all of the pieces are made up of. So it helps to really start with that as a basis. It's completely free, and I think it's like 4 to 6 hours of content. And then go from there and then watch some of the Rancher videos where they go through Kubernetes and how that interacts with Rancher. And all of that is free. It takes a very small amount of time to actually build up to what we're looking at. So I think from a Kubernetes standpoint, you don't have to know all of the commands and all of the individual pieces to actually get started with Rancher.
So we have the next webinar coming up on the 21st. I see some people chatting about it right now. We'll have that link out in the email. When's that? Usually Tuesdays.
Monday morning.
Monday morning. So Monday morning, stay tuned to your email. I know people are trying to be part of the first few hundred to get it registered here. So stay tuned to your email box Monday morning, and we'll get that out for you. We got another exciting demo and presentation next week. Like we mentioned last week, and we've mentioned some of the Q&A. If there's anything particular you want to see, feel free to reach out to AJ and send him your requests for demos, and we'll be happy to add it into our schedule. With that, I think we're a wrap. I think we don't have any new questions coming in.
No, I think we're good. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll be here next week talking about microsegmentation. So please come back and join us. Again, if you want to schedule a test drive, please email me, aj.koftik@expedient.com or @ajkoftik on Twitter. Reach out on LinkedIn so that we can actually get you guys set up and see if you guys really like it. So thanks for joining us.